And the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, do you understand that she's asleep right now? And she has breast cancer. And the gentleman said, actually, I don't. That's a different department.
UnitedHealthcare is calling a doctor while the patient's in surgery. You understand why people hate these people? Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. The case against Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, has been delayed for what ultimately might be over a month into February. Meanwhile, another unreal horror story at the hands of UnitedHealthcare that shed light on potentially why Luigi Mangione allegedly targeted that company in specific. First, let me read about the delay in the case. Court proceedings for Luigi Mangione and the UnitedHealthcare CEO killing delayed several weeks. Prosecutors said they consulted with the defense and agreed that extending the deadline was necessary, quote, to permit both parties adequate preparation for pretrial proceedings and the trial itself. The man accused of gunning down UnitedHealthcare CEO outside a New York City hotel is unlikely to appear in Manhattan federal court again before mid-February, after prosecutors and lawyers on Monday requested more time to prepare the case for trial. The lawyers agreed in a letter to the court that the deadline to bring an indictment against Luigi Mangione can be extended from January 18th to February 17th. So now we're looking at a month and a half from right now. Mangione is now charged in a criminal complaint, a document that is lodged against individuals prior to the return of an indictment. Prosecutors said they consulted with the defense and agreed that extending the deadline was necessary to permit both parties adequate preparation for pretrial proceedings and the trial itself. Lawyers for Mangione and federal prosecutors declined to comment. The case is unusual because at least one charge carries the possibility of the death penalty, that being the federal charge. But whether to pursue that penalty must be made by the Justice Department in Washington, where top officials will be changed as President-elect Donald Trump takes office later this month. Authorities say Mangione fatally shot Brian Thompson, yada, yada, yada. Federal charges against Mangione include murder and firearm counts. He made an initial appearance on the charges late last month. Mangione was arrested December 9th in Pennsylvania following a 5-day search. So essentially, we're looking now at a case potentially starting, a trial potentially starting in mid-February. Obviously, that would give Trump's Justice Department also time to take a look at this because Trump at that point will have been in office for over a month. I also want to read to you, as we've covered before, but new comments about why this case, when it starts, has a pretty high chance of jury nullification, that being the jury basically believing Mangione committed the crime, but still finding him not guilty. This is from News Nation. Luigi Mangione's fandom could lead to jury nullification. Since his arrest, Mangione's online fandom has rapidly grown, with supporters posting sympathetic messages, creating fan accounts, and even raising thousands on crowdfunding sites to pay for his legal defense fund. To these sympathizers, Mangione's alleged crime symbolizes a rejection of the American healthcare system. That, coupled with him being easy on the eyes, has turned Mangione into a, quote, modern-day Robin Hood. Former federal prosecutor Niama Ramani told News Nation, quote, I have never seen a criminal defendant, much less an accused murderer, receive as much sympathy both on traditional media and social media. He is a folk hero of sorts to many. Ramani said there is a, quote, very high possibility of jury nullification in this case, where a sympathetic juror could hold out for Mangione. Jury nullification occurs when a jury returns a not guilty verdict, even though jurors believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant has broken the law. This may happen when jurors disagree with the law or the punishment. If that happens, there is a high probability of a mistrial, which happens when jurors aren't able to reach the same verdict. So a few things, and buckle up because I'm about to show you another story that truly is sickening and unbelievable that this happens in America, where we're told by our government healthcare is a human right. But if the feds and the state, if it's such a slam dunk against Luigi Mangione, if they got the fingerprints, if they got all the ballistics, if they have all the evidence that they said is overwhelming against them, why did they need a month and a half delay? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but isn't that a common sense question? If you got this guy dead to rights, if he's up, Schitt's Creek without a paddle, wouldn't you want to go after this right away? I mean, I could understand the defense wanting more time because they're also not just dealing with federal charges, but state charges. And you're talking about multiple charges from first-degree murder to second-degree murder with the addition of terrorism, which we've covered is insane and absurd. But I find it highly questionable why the government needs more time if, as we've been told by the media and the government, they got their guy. I'd love to know what you think in the comments, but seems odd to me that they would need such a delay in this case, because to be clear, right now it's a delay till mid-February. There could be other procedural things that kick the can down the road. To me, I think it's good for the defense that they're getting this delay, because to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've watched a lot of Law and Order, the best chance, I don't think, is, defense on insanity. I don't think they would win on insanity, but is putting the health care industry on trial. And the more time and the delay, the more horror stories that come out, which I'm about to show you another one. And the more that the potential jury that will be selected is exposed to those horror stories, particularly ones at the hands of UnitedHealthcare. So the longer a delay, the more that a jury will be consuming and soaking in, the horrors of the U.S. for-profit predatory health care system. And to me, that's the best chance that someone like Luigi Mangione has at that jury nullification, where you can't get 12 jurors to agree, which could be a mistrial, or, they agree he committed the crime, but at the end of the day, felt it was justified. And when you watch videos like the one I'm about to show you, you start to think, hey, I'm not okay with cold-blooded murder, but this seems like cold-blooded murder. Here is a doctor describing literally getting the call from UnitedHealthcare during a patient's surgery, trying to deny their hospital stay. I mean, you just literally cannot make this stuff up.
It's 2025 and insurance just keeps getting worse. I just did 2 bilateral deeps and 2 bilateral tissue expanders for patients. And I've never had this happen before, but during the second deep, I got a phone call into the operating room saying that UnitedHealthcare wanted me to call them about one of the patients who was having surgery today, who was actually asleep having surgery. And, said I had to call right now. So I scrubbed out of my case and I called UnitedHealthcare, and the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, to understand this, she's asleep right now and she has breast cancer. And the gentleman said, actually, I don't. That's a different department that would know that information. And I was like, well, she does need to stay overnight tonight. And you have all the information with you because I got approval for this surgery. And I need to go back and be with my patient now. But it's out of control. Insurance is out of control. I have no other words.
Some bean counter buffoon from UnitedHealthcare is calling a doctor while the patient's in surgery, breast cancer. Why is it necessary for the patient to stay overnight? Why do we got to pay for that? The doctor says, do you know that this surgery is for breast cancer? Oh, no, that's from a different department. You understand why people hate these people? You understand why, in some extreme cases, they might want to perpetrate violence? Even though I'm not condoning violence, Don't go get your guns and gun down CEOs. I've made it clear. Like, why doesn't UnitedHealthcare, a billion-dollar company, why doesn't one department know what the other one's doing? Why do you have some dude calling a doctor not even knowing what the patient's surgery is for? You're calling to ask if it's medically necessary to stay overnight when you don't even have the information on what the hell the surgery is for? A doctor needs to be distracted and dealing with this bullshit? A lot of people, have, in some cases, misguided animosity towards the doctors, but the doctors, in many cases, are just as fed up as you. Since this story broke, I've been watching so many videos from great doctors talking about their disgust and frustration and with these health insurance companies, and how they, in some cases, spend more time dealing with the health insurance companies than dealing with patient care. Here's one example. I mean, it's just beyond the pale that you're questioning whether a breast cancer patient mid-surgery needs to stay overnight. That's the kind of stuff, if Luigi Mangione's defense has their head on straight, I assume they do, might come into play. Because if he is the shooter, you got to say alleged. I mean, then you got to make the trial about other things. And those other things would also be the United States health insurance industry. Real quick, I want to show you, this isn't necessarily like serious news, but I kind of got to chuckle over it. Sean Diddy Combs, Puff Daddy, who is in prison for allegedly being a serial predator. So that part is not funny. Apparently, he is throwing tantrums. He's in the same prison, apparently the same section as Luigi Mangione in Brooklyn. He's throwing tantrums over the attention Mangione is getting. Apparently, Mangione is on P. Diddy's hit list. Sean Diddy Combs is throwing tantrums about the attention fellow inmate Luigi Mangione has taken from him inside their notorious New York City lockup, and that may put the accused CEO killer on the disgraced rapper's shit list, a source told the Post Tuesday. When Combs was arrested on sex trafficking charges on September 16th, he was the most famous prisoner at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, but his reign was short-lived. After Mangione was arrested for allegedly gunning down UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson in early December, he was booked into the same facility as the 55-year-old music mogul. Since he arrived at MDC, Mangione, who is being held in protective custody, has become a sensation among other inmates. Mangione is reportedly receiving a hero's welcome on the inside, with other inmates expressing their own troubles with health insurance. Even the prisoners have stories. But that attention has apparently rankled Combs, who is housed in the general population of starstruck inmates. Quote, Diddy has been throwing tantrums over the fact that Luigi is getting all the attention in prison and is being revered as a hero after literally murdering someone on camera, a source told the Post. Even in prison, Diddy's ego is bigger than life. Combs' reaction comes as no surprise to a former member of his inner circle. Quote, he always wants to be at the center of everything, the former insider told the Post. Quote, if he feels like anyone else takes his attention, he doesn't take it well. He gets pissed off. And if he has the power to do it, he makes the other person's life miserable. Combs is obviously facing decades behind bars. Combs and Mangione share the same legal team, but have never spoken to each other. Both men will remain at Metropolitan Detention Center for the foreseeable future. Quote, he's going to have Mangione on a shit list, says the Diddy insider. I don't think in terms of Luigi Mangione's priorities, being on P. Diddy shit list is one of them. But it has been reported that Mangione is being treated quite well in prison and has been elevated and I guess, supported by the prisoners who, as that story revealed, many of them have their own personal stories with the health care system. One more thing I wanted to show you comes from an interview I did yesterday. Please watch it, about the tragedy of a father who lost his son, 22 years old, after his son went to pick up his routine asthma medication. His insurance was Optum. Optum is a subsidiary of United Health. And that insurance that Advair, which is routine for asthma, which the son had gotten for a long time for $35, suddenly was over $500. Couldn't afford it, left without it. Days later, had a severe asthma attack. Days after the severe asthma attack, died. Here is the father, Bill, sharing the heartbreaking moment that he lost his son.
He did donate his organs. He didn't go the perfect way of donation, but he still helped 75 people with his organ donation, which is pretty nice and honorable, you know. But it allowed my wife and I, prior to the donation, to be with him in his last final moments. And you know, my wife, my son, and I were very close to the last second that he was alive. I had my head on his chest, holding his hand. To his very last breath. And that put a drive in me that where I'm at today. I mean, like, you want some motivation. You want some motivation. Your firstborn child is gone and you just felt his last breath. And that's what happened to me and my family.
That kind of stuff is happening all over this country. And unfortunately, they don't get the breaking news alerts like the murder of Brian Thompson. Optum is a subsidiary of United Health Group, the same United Health Group whose CEO did a video lauding what a great guy Brian Thompson was, the CEO of United Healthcare, and saying, we will continue to be the guardians, guarding against unsafe and unnecessary care. A 22-year-old is no longer with us because United, through its subsidiary Optum, a pharmacy benefit manager, which is a whole nother can of worms and a scam and another unnecessary middleman, decided to jack up the price, decided no longer to provide Advair on its formulaic, they call it, so that you could buy it, you could get the medication for a reasonable amount. And you know many people that have over $500 to pay for their asthma medication, and a 22-year-old had a severe asthma attack and then fell into cardiac arrest because simply some greedy ghouls decided, we're just going to jack up the price. That's what this is about. And I believe the longer this trial is delayed, the more stories like this will come out and the more a potential jury will be exposed to it. We'll continue covering if and as there are new developments in this case, and we're going to continue covering the healthcare Hunger Games and the horror stories that the corporate media covers up. Please support us by becoming a Status Coup member. We're trying to hire a new reporter. Obviously, that takes resources and money. So it's not just me, but we have other reporters and other resources to expand. Sign up. You can become a member for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. StatusCoup.com/join.